I like engines. I like the way they work. What if the calm, mechanical heartbeat you hear in the Sand Pebbles is actually the sound of a production constantly on the verge of collapse? The Sand Pebbles wasn't just a historical epic about a lone sailor in turbulent times. It was a brutal, slow-burn experiment in endurance, human, mechanical, and emotional. Behind the stately frames and dignified performances were sinking boats, collapsing schedules, physical breakdowns, and creative standoffs that reshaped the film day by day. Sets fought the weather, the river fought the crew, and the actors fought exhaustion. Today, you're about to hear 15 weird facts about the Sand Pebbles, stories hidden behind the engine noise and the flags on screen. There's also one bonus fact that even longtime fans almost never hear about. So stay with me, listen closely, and don't blink. Fact number 1. The river was the real villain. The Yangtze River doesn't just appear hostile on screen, it is hostile during production. The crew shoots in Taiwan, using rivers that shift currents without warning. Barges drift, equipment slips, engines fail mid-take. This isn't a controlled backlot illusion. It's real water with real consequences. What audiences don't know is how often filming halts because boats simply won't behave. Anchors drag, lines snap, schedules collapse. Every day begins with uncertainty. Not if something goes wrong, but what? The river dictates the pace, not the call sheet. It isn't a movie set pretending to be dangerous. It's a dangerous environment pretending to be a movie set, and that tension seeps into every frame. Factor 2. Steve McQueen isn't acting his obsession. Steve McQueen's Jake Holman treats engines like living things. That isn't scripted flourish. McQueen genuinely understands mechanics. He studies the ship's machinery until he can operate it without assistance. Between takes, he isn't resting. He's adjusting valves, listening to vibrations, asking questions the crew doesn't expect from an actor. The camera captures authenticity because it's there before the lens rolls. It wasn't method acting, it was alignment. McQueen doesn't pretend to respect machines, he does. That's why Holman feels grounded, not theatrical. What audiences didn't know is that many close-ups aren't staged performances. They're documentation of McQueen at ease inside a mechanical world he trusts more than people. Fact number 3. The film shoots like a war without one. This production moves slowly, painfully slowly, not from indecision, but from scale. Boats must align. Extras must move as one. Flags, uniforms, and background motion all matter. The result is a crew operating under constant pressure, long hours, repeated resets, scenes take days to complete. Fatigue becomes part of the process. It isn't chaos like shouting in panic, it's worse, it's quiet exhaustion, the kind that erodes patience and sharpens tempers. Not a battlefield, but a campaign, not explosions, but attrition, and everyone involved feels it by the end. Fact number 4. Richard Attenborough carries emotional weight off-screen. Richard Attenborough's performance radiates restraint. What viewers don't see is how emotionally draining the role becomes behind the camera. He spends hours rehearsing alone, refining posture and tone, not to impress, but to avoid excess. His character's authority comes from stillness, not volume. Between takes, Attenborough remains in character longer than necessary. He doesn't joke, he doesn't disengage quickly. The role lingers. It isn't indulgence, it's protection. He knows that one wrong emotional note could break the film's balance, so he carries the weight quietly until the camera rolls and then releases it with precision. Fact number 5. Robert Wise runs the set like a machine. Director Robert Wise doesn't chase spectacle, he enforces discipline. Call sheets are exact. Blocking is precise, nothing is casual. This frustrates some performers early on, but over time, they realize why. The film's complexity demands order. Without it, everything collapses. Wise rarely raises his voice. He doesn't need to. His authority is structural. You either fit into the system or the system exposes you. It isn't a loose, creative playground. It's a carefully tuned engine, and Wise is the mechanic making sure it doesn't seize under pressure. Fact number 6. Boats are built to fail gracefully. The gunboats aren't just props, they're engineered compromises, built to look authentic, function safely, and break in controlled ways. Why? Because accidents are expected. Planks loosen, metal fatigues, paint peels under sun and water. The art department constantly repairs what the river erodes. What audiences don't know is how often boats are patched overnight to survive one more day of filming. Not rebuilt, held together. The illusion of permanence on screen hides a daily fight against entropy behind the scenes. Fact number 7. The heat alters performances. The climate isn't background detail. It's a factor shaping performances. Actors sweat through uniforms designed for authenticity, not comfort. Takes lengthen, tempers shorten, focus becomes a limited resource. McQueen, in particular, adapts by minimizing movement. Less wasted energy, more stillness. That restraint becomes part of Holman's identity. It isn't a stylistic choice born in rehearsal, it's survival. And it gives the film an unintentional realism, people conserving themselves in an unforgiving environment. Fact number 8. Language barriers create unscripted moments. The production relies on local crews and extras. Communication isn't always smooth. Instructions are translated. Timing shifts. Sometimes background action doesn't match expectations. A movement happens early. A reaction comes late. Instead of stopping, Wise often lets the camera roll. These imperfections add texture. The world feels lived in, not choreographed. Not clean, but authentic. What audiences didn't know is that some of the film's most convincing crowd moments come from controlled misunderstanding, not strict direction. Here, fact number 9. The studio wants a different movie. As production stretches on, pressure tightens from above. The studio watches the runtime grow and grows uneasy. They worry about patience, about tone, about whether audiences will stay with something this measured. They want momentum, clear heroes, faster pacing, fewer pauses. Robert Wise resists quietly but firmly. He believes the film's power lives in accumulation, not speed, in observation, not constant motion. Meetings follow, notes arrive, suggestions sharpen, scenes are questioned, then trimmed, but they are not gutted. Meaning remains intact, only compressed. What audiences never see is this careful negotiation shaping the final cut. It isn't a clean win or a clear loss. It's a compromise forged under scrutiny, and it defines the film's final shape. Fact number 10. McQueen pushes back carefully. Midway through filming, Steve McQueen begins to push back, but not publicly, not emotionally, strategically. He asks questions instead of making demands. Why speak here? Why react at all? What happens if the moment stays silent? These aren't challenges, they're probes. Robert Wise listens. Sometimes he agrees, sometimes he doesn't, and when he doesn't, McQueen adjusts without protest. This isn't rebellion, it's collaboration under strain. Two strong-willed professionals navigating respect without ego. Right here, go ahead and like and subscribe because if this feels like trivia, what follows reveals just how fragile this production truly is. That tension, controlled, restrained, ends up on screen. You can feel it in every withheld reaction. Fact number 11. The film redefines action. There are long stretches where nothing explodes. No shouting, no dramatic music cue telling you how to feel. And yet, tension builds. Slowly, ruthlessly. Robert Wise understands that restraint is action. A glance held too long. A decision delayed. A machine that refuses to start. These moments aren't empty. They're engineered pressure. The kind that tightens the chest instead of jolting it. What audiences didn't know is how deliberate and risky this pacing choice is. In an era leaning toward spectacle, Wise asks viewers to lean in instead of sit back. The film doesn't chase attention, it trusts it, and that trust becomes its defining signature, separating it from louder war epics of its time. OSTD fact number 12. The score is built to breathe. Jerry Goldsmith's score never overpowers the film, it observes it. Themes appear, withdraw, then return altered, like memory rather than instruction. Silence is treated as punctuation, not absence. This isn't background noise, it's structure. Goldsmith and Wise work closely, reshaping cues to follow emotional weight instead of plot beats. Music doesn't announce importance, it waits for it. What audiences didn't know is how much music is removed during post-production. Cues are cut, moments are left bare. The impact grows stronger through subtraction. The result is a score that feels inevitable rather than imposed, music that breathes with the film instead of pushing it forward. It reinforces restraint as philosophy, not limitation. Fact 13. The film ages better than expected. When the film is released, reactions split. Some viewers call it slow, others call it heavy. The pacing unsettles expectations, but time reshapes perception. As cinema grows louder and faster elsewhere, the Sand Pebbles quietly transforms into a counterpoint, a reminder that patience itself can be craft. What once felt long now feels deliberate. What once seemed distant now feels intimate. The film doesn't chase relevance, it waits for it, and that waiting becomes its quiet triumph. Modern audiences discover a rhythm they didn't know they missed, not urgency, but gravity. The film endures because it refuses to hurry, and time eventually rewards that refusal. Fact number 14. The ending is fought over. The final moments spark serious debate. How much should be shown? How long should the camera stay? The studio worries about clarity, about whether audiences will get it. Robert Wise insists on dignity over spectacle. He resists explanation. He trusts emotion to land without instruction. Edits are tested, alternatives considered, but the final version holds its ground. It doesn't spell itself out. It doesn't rush to comfort. It allows space for reaction rather than resolution. That restraint defines the film's legacy. Not closure, but resonance. What audiences didn't know is how close this ending comes to being reshaped, and how much its power depends on what it refuses to explain. Fact number 15. McQueen leaves changed. By the end of production, Steve McQueen is drained. Physically, mentally. The shoot demands patience he isn't known for. Long stretches of stillness, internalized conflict, emotional containment. But something shifts. He carries this experience forward, toward roles that value interior tension over surface bravado. The Sand Pebbles becomes a hinge point, not his loudest performance, not his most iconic, but one of his most formative. The film doesn't just capture McQueen at a moment in time, it redirects him. What audiences didn't know is that this role quietly reshapes his trajectory, proving that power doesn't always come from motion, but from restraint held under pressure. Bonus fact: that opening quote about engines isn't just character flavor. It's the film's thesis. Systems, order, function, what happens when they fail. Every relationship mirrors a machine under strain. Every choice tests tolerance. What audiences didn't know is how consciously this idea shapes every department, from sound design to editing rhythm. The film isn't about history alone. It's about systems meeting humanity. And when they collide, something always breaks. In the end, The Sand Pebbles stands as a film built the hard way, through friction, fatigue, and fierce commitment to craft. What you see on screen is calm. What made it is anything but. If this revealed a side of the film you'd never considered, share it, subscribe, and remember, some movies run smoothly, others teach you what it costs to keep the engine alive.